In today's video, we're going to be doing the second 2023 to 2024 winter outlook here on the channel. We're going to be doing this overall map, of course, but not before we cover temperatures, precipitation, and snowfall. Right before I get started, it would be very much appreciated if you could hit subscribe. Only about 1% of you all who watch this are subscribed, so it would be fantastic if we could get that up to maybe 10-15%. But let's just get right into it. Temperature anomalies here. So above average temperatures are expected in the northwest as well as the northern plains, the northern Great Lakes, and the northern New England, most of southern Canada, and then 2 to 4 degrees. So pretty above average in the northwest, the Intermountain West as well in the BC. Now, 1 to 2 degrees below average from Los Angeles to southern plains into the southeast and most of the mid-Atlantic, with 2 to 4 degrees below average. So pretty cold relative to normal east of Dallas, north of New Orleans, really most of the deep south there into the Carolinas and southern Virginia. Normal in between in this gray area from San Francisco to Denver to St. Louis, Chicago, Pittsburgh, New York City, and Boston. Now let's go into precipitation here. So drier than normal conditions are expected in all of the northwest as well as the lower Great Lakes from Chicago to Detroit to St. Louis, with above average precipitation expected in Southern California down to South Texas into the Gulf Coast and then up the East Coast from DC, New York City into Boston. With average precipitation expected in all areas, you just see gray on this map here. Now going into snowfall. So below average snowfall is expected in the northwest as well as the Great Lakes and then into much of southern Canada, with well below average snowfall, unfortunately from Seattle to Portland, but for many of you probably watching in Chicago and all of Michigan, in the western New York, northwestern Pennsylvania, northern Ohio, you could only see about 50 to 60, maybe 70% of your total normal snowfall at best. So it's not looking like the best year there. And then above average snowfall is expected in the Great Basin, of course, into the South Central Plains, Albuquerque to Oklahoma City, and then north of Atlanta, up to through DC, New York City, and even Boston now. Well above average snowfall from eastern New Mexico to the Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma, and then over into the southern Appalachians from Asheville to Roanoke into Harrisonburg, Virginia. All right. The overall winter outlook map here. Where's winter is a question you might be asking yourself if you live in this area of Oregon and Washington. Not too many people out there, but there are some. Once again, it's not looking like the most wintry of winters coming up here. Poor ski season. Don't get me wrong, you'll still be able to make plenty of snow in this area, but you might not get as much help from Mother Nature when it comes to making that 6, 7, 8 foot snow base in these areas. Now, mild conditions expected in the northern plains, into Minnesota, northwest Wisconsin, as well as Seattle and Portland. Around a normal winter from northern California through Salt Lake City, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Omaha, Nebraska, into Kansas City, and just west of St. Louis. So really around normal as far as temperatures, precipitation, and snowfall. Of course, there's going to be a few areas that, maybe were the exception, but overall, it should be a relatively normal winter in these light blue areas. Now going into the lower snow levels. This includes most of Nevada as well as northern Arizona, western New Mexico, southern Utah. So a lot of these areas really are mostly desert and some mountain ranges and ridges and things like that. So of course, if the snow levels are normally 5,000-6,000 feet, they might only be 3,000 or 4,000 feet for a few events this upcoming winter season. Another winter season is expected in the Sierra Nevadas over to Flagstaff, Arizona. Last winter was just off the charts. We don't expect this winter to be like last winter, but it still is expected to be a pretty good year in these Sierra Nevada mountains. Now, an epic year is expected in the southern Rockies into southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. A lot of these ski resorts are going to be faring very well, and really anywhere in this area should do pretty well when it comes to snowfall. Another area that should do much better than normal is the central part of the plains into North Texas, eastern New Mexico, most of eastern Colorado, really all of Kansas, and then western Oklahoma. So cold and snowy conditions expected from Amarillo, Texas over to Denver and then Wichita, Kansas. A lot of these areas haven't seen much of a cold and snowy winter in a while. This winter should be a very good one in this area. Now, chilly and rainy conditions expected from Los Angeles through Phoenix, and then most of Texas into most of the deep south there. Wet conditions also in South Florida, severe outbreaks along the Gulf Coast. So we've shifted this area a little bit further south as the below average temperatures have also been shifted a little bit further south on the East Coast. So now the severe outbreaks are expected to be centered right around the Gulf Coast, from the northern half of Florida into the southern half of Georgia, Alabama, and then southeastern Mississippi into eastern Louisiana. All right, now mild and less lake effect. For really all the lake effect belts, yes, we're still going to have a lot of cold shots here, but not as many as you'd normally see. And El Nino does not tend to treat these areas too nicely. Now, mild and dry conditions are expected across much of the Midwest. There is a chance that the southern area of this mild and dry region could do a little bit better than I have, so there is a reason to stay optimistic. But as far as when you get into Wisconsin, Michigan, the northern half of Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, it's just not looking like a great winter for all you snow lovers in this region. All right, now messy storms. This includes a wide swath of area from parts of Texas into Oklahoma City, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, much of Tennessee, really all of Kentucky, and then in the southwest Virginia. So, of course, yeah, you're going to have some storms where it's really only rain, especially in the first half of the winter. But I think by the second half of the winter especially, you're going to see an increasing amount of wintry mixed storms and maybe even a few all-snow events in much of this area here. Now, going all the way up north, slightly mild and missing big storms from Pittsburgh up through Binghamton, Albany, and then in northern New England. So I'm more confident, especially on the northern edge of this area. Yes, you're probably still going to have some big storms from Binghamton to Albany and then in these fringe areas in southern and central New England. But when you get towards the Adirondacks and in the northwestern PA and in the northern Maine, those are the areas that really don't tend to do well with the configuration that we have right about now. So slightly mild and missing big storms in this tan area. All right, going back down south, I've dropped this area a little bit further south to include upstate South Carolina and then the mountains of North Georgia, really most of central North Carolina, and then into a slither of southeast Virginia. Mostly icy conditions. We could have a storm that is, the classic north of I-85 and could drop 6-7 inches of snow. That would be very rare north of Charlotte, but you could have that happen, especially in a strong El Nino that southern sliders are infamous in. So I'm not ruling that out, but for the most part, this area is going to see more so that sleet and freezing rain combination. Now up north again, so hits and misses from Charleston, West Virginia, just south of Pittsburgh State College in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre, and then over to southern New England and down east Maine. So hits and misses. You are going to have some storms that are pretty good, especially in December and January there. By the time February rolls around, I think that this area is going to be mostly on the northern fringe of a lot of events. But as we have often seen in the past few winters, sometimes being on the northern fringe of events a few days out on the models is exactly where you want to be. So this area could certainly get some large hits. Now going back to western North Carolina, central Virginia, into the Delmarva and southern New Jersey wintry mix, and 1 to 2 big storms. So this could easily be an area that sees 1 foot snowfall, and then mostly, nickel and dime events, which is down here anywhere between like an inch or 2, sometimes 3, and then of course that situation where you get some rain, and then of course that situation where you get some snow followed by sleet. Not much freezing rain because it's not much cold air damming in the eastern regions of this area, and then just plain rain. So 1 to 2 big storms certainly possible though. Finally rounding it out with the jackpot zone from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia to northern Maryland, southeastern quarter of Pennsylvania into central New Jersey and Long Island for the most part. Jackpot zone. So this area hasn't done well in several winters. It's been a long time, probably since the winter of 2013 to 2014. And then, of course, you had the 2009-2010 winter, which has some similarities to this upcoming season. So we're going to have to see. I think that there will be a few big-time storms that really do jackpot this area, especially the northern parts of this area here. And then there's also expected to be lots of nickel and dime events, which up here are more like 2 to 4, 4 to 6, even 5 to 8 inch type events. So This area I expect to fare pretty well this upcoming season. So that has been the second edition of the 2023 to 24 Winter Outlook here on the channel. Thank you so much everybody for watching. If you like the video, please like the video down there and maybe even subscribe. Alright everybody, stay tuned for more videos in the upcoming months and thanks for watching.